Hey, Kayflan.
Hey, Waf, what are we doing today?
Today we're going to nerd out with the different types of data we have in Python.
Ooh, yeah, we've been looking at a lot of data, but what kind of data is it?
Yeah, so we have been just diving right into Python because I think the best way to learn data science is seeing by example and doing it yourself. But I want to take a little view of how Python's understanding different types of data we have. And there's going to be three broad types of data we're going to be nerding out with throughout the semester. So the first type of data is going to be numeric data. So numeric data is going to be data that are simply numbers. And we don't need to put any special syntax around numbers. We can just start writing the numbers inside of code, and they're just going to be simple numbers inside of our data frame. So this is going to be whole numbers like 4 or 42. It can be negative numbers like 37, or it can even be decimals like 3.1415. And the number 0 itself is a very popular number in data science.
Yes.
So the general way we work with numbers is we can add numbers together. We can subtract them. We can multiply them. We can divide them. The basic operations on numbers, they're easy to work with. They're easy to combine. They're easy to do math with. If the data is not numeric data, then the data is often going to be text data. And text data uses a data type in Python called a string. And a string inside of Python is going to be anything that is a single value that is not a number. So this is going to include things like the string hello, the string Carly. We might even talk about cookies, and we might say I have 100 cookies in my cookie jar. I may also be looking at like YouTube views and might have a number at the end of saying that a video might have 123 views on YouTube. Some of these contain some numbers inside of them, but as a unit, they're an entire string. And the way we're going to work with strings is generally we're going to use their values and not change a string. So we generally treat strings as constants, that you can add them together and basically have hello plus Carly being hello Carly, and that's an operation called concatenation. But we're not commonly using, you're not commonly adding strings together like we'll be adding numbers together.
Yeah, and the strings always have to be in quotes, and the numbers never have to be in quotes.
Exactly. Whenever we have a string, we denote the fact of the string by putting a set of quotes at the beginning and end of the string. And you'll see that a string might have space in the middle, but as long as they're contained within quotes on either side, we'll know that that's one piece of text.
Got it.
The very last thing we're going to work with is we are going to also work with a lot of objects inside of Python. And objects are going to be things that have operations that we can do on them. So we've already loaded in a data frame inside of this course.
Yeah, we usually call it DF. Is that an object?
Exactly, it is an object. So a data frame is one of our types of objects. We're going to also look at things called Python lists and Python dictionaries. And in general, these objects, we're going to work with objects and manipulate them by using functions and methods. So they are used and changed with functions. So when we think about functions, functions is anything that we use a dot and then the name of a function that we're calling. So for example, we've done df.sample, and what this does is it looks at our data frame, then it calls the sample function, and then it looks at the options we've given the sample function. So we might take a data frame and say we want to sample n equals 5 rows. So this is how Python thinks about data. Every piece of data we have in Python is either going to be a number, a piece of text, or an object. So these are going to be the variable types we have. But as a data scientist, Carly, we will often think about the data we have as two different broad categories.
Yeah, so the two categories that I often think of as a data scientist are quantitative data and qualitative data. They both kind of sound the same. So let's start with quantitative data.
Yeah, I often just call this quant data.
Yep, so quantitative data is numeric data. It's data that's measured numerically. And any variable that we have where the output is a number would be quantitative data. And we can add and subtract quantitative data, and we can actually further divide it into two categories.
Yeah, what two categories do you divide quant data into?
So I usually like to think about discrete data and continuous data. And the most simple way to think about those two categories is that discrete data has to be whole numbers, and continuous data can have decimals.
Okay, so discrete data is a whole number, and continuous data can have decimals.
Yep.
So do you have an example of something that is discrete where you can't break it up into pieces?
Yeah, so we looked at the Illini football data set. So if I was looking at like number of Illini wins against Michigan, that would be a discrete discrete data because you can only say whole numbers.
Yeah, so I've got this data frame up right here, and we can see that we've got some numeric data like a year, like the Illini score and the opponent score, and you can't have a fraction of a point. So we're always going to see whole numbers here. So the Illini score is 45, 23, and so forth. They're always a whole number. You can only have one more point or one less point.
Yep, so that would be an example of discrete data. And then continuous data would be something that would make sense to have decimals. So a lot of times things like weights or heights or anything where it makes sense to have a decimal would be an example of continuous data.
So we want to classify all of the data in the entire course as one type of data. So it looks like this Eastern Illinois, that is data, right?
Yeah, that is data, but it's not quantitative data. This is actually going to be something called qualitative data or categorical data. And this is data where the outcome is a category. So if we look at the football data set really quick, I can see that there's a lot of categorical data here. So like the result, whether they won or lost, this is going to be a category where you're either going to have a W or an L.
Oh, awesome. So we have like two different categories within the result column.
Yeah, and we don't have numbers. Instead, we have strings.
Will the opponent also be a category?
Yep, because here we have the name of the opponent, which in this case, all strings.
And then one last question as we're looking at this data set. I see the season variable, and it looks like a numeric data.
Ooh, yeah, it does look like this is a number. We have 2024. But with years, it wouldn't make sense to add and subtract them. We're not calling this 2024. We're saying this is 2024, this is the season, this is year. This is more of a category. So sometimes that happens. Variables that look like their numbers are actually categorical, and that would be a good example of one that is.
This is a broad overview of what we're going to be nerding out all semester long about how to think about data as both a data scientist and as Python. And we're going to be working with both a numeric and textual representation of data and a quant and qualitative representation of data throughout the entire semester.
And that was types of data.